Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome back to Prospect Central 101. My name is Chris, and today joining me we have
Keelan.
Daniel.
and we're going to be doing a little bit of a lines breakdown for you guys today. So, you guys may be pretty familiar with Keilan from some of our prospect breakdowns, and Daniel normally joins uh, us for these every year or so. I don't know if you were here last year, I think you were. But
Yeah, I was here last year.
sweet. So we're going to be doing this again this year, and we're going to start off by just going over a little bit of what happened last season. So first three games ended up going pretty good. Ended up tying with the Cardinals. Ended up beating the Chargers in week 2 at home for the home opener, and then we ended up winning week 3 in Philadelphia before the Kansas City game. Week 4 ended up becoming a loss at the last minute, followed by the bye week going into the Packers game Monday night at Lambeau, and everyone saw that Monday night disaster. And then after that, it just kind of rolled and rolled, and then Stafford got hurt, and we lost. I think it was what 8 straight or 9 straight to end the year.
Yeah,
A lot.
something like that.
So we did beat the Giants last year as well in that ending stretch after week 4, but the main overarching point was from week 4, the start of week 4 through the end of week 17, we won one game, and that was against the Giants, who were basically almost as bad as us. So, what do you guys think, other than, of course, the Stafford injury? We'll start with Daniel for this. Was the major cause of this issue? Just without even getting into solutions, just what do you think was the issue?
Well, first of all, I want to start out by saying that I don't think we're as bad as our record. I genuinely don't think we're a top three worst team in the league. So I just want to make that clear. I think that the Stafford issue obviously played a huge impact into how the season went. It's pretty clear to me that this was not heading in the direction, even while Stafford was still playing, that meant that we could get into the playoffs. But it was clear we could have made a run and won a few more games and been an average team or so, like 7 and 9 and 1 or something in that range, I think was reasonable. But yeah, once Stafford went down, the whole thing collapsed for sure.
And I think that we kind of got to see that. You point to the whole playoff qualification not necessarily being there with the losses that we had. The Chiefs game was really close. The Packers game was very close. Even the second Packers game was really week 17 game was really close. So there were quite a few games that were kind of just like right on that uh, really competitive scale. That and what was that? I think we lost like 8 or 9 games in the last 12 minutes of the game or something. It was a ridiculous amount of games they ended up losing in the fourth quarter this year. So and that definitely played a role as well. Keelan, what are your thoughts on things that went wrong other than the Stafford injury this year?
Um, I think a lot of the issues came on defense if we're not talking about Stafford.
Right.
I mean, Hand was out for a bit of the season. Daniels, we just had a lot of injuries. We couldn't get pressure, and I think that was a main issue of us only winning. What was it, 3 games?
3 wins plus the tie. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think just struggling to get pressure on the quarterback was a big reason.
Yep. So we'll definitely be getting more into that as we progress through this video. I know Daniel in particular has a lot to say about pressuring the quarterback. So we'll definitely be getting into that as the video continues to go on. But first, we are going to start with the offensive side of the football. Here is courtesy of Sharp For those of you guys who can see this, I don't know if you guys can on the Skype call, but
I can.
cool. So here is Detroit's offensive snap count, including the games that Stafford did not play the whole entire season, of our breakdown in offensive personnel. And took 61% of snaps in 11, and then 18 and 12 and 10 and so on. And then it has the parentheses are the total snap counts. So 621 snaps out of 11 personnel. So is there anything, we'll start with Keilan this time, is there anything that surprised you given the conceptions and thoughts that you might have had coming into this season, based on what you know about our roster and players that we have at the time?
Things that surprised me.
Yeah.
Well, for me, what surprised me was just how limited of a role Jesse James played.
Yep.
Obviously, that's because he wasn't very good when he played. I can only remember like one or two impact plays he had the whole season. So that's really disappointing given that he was a priority signing for us. And we were really hoping, I think, to integrate more two tight end looks, but we had to adjust when it became clear that Amendola was just way outperforming Jesse James. So that's an unfortunate result of our season.
Yep. Keilan, you got anything to add to that?
Yeah, I feel like what surprised me was how Amendola performed. Honestly, like at his age, he just performed really well as as slot and for all three of our quarterbacks. He was just like, I don't know. I thought it just surprised me. I thought he was like near the tail end of his career. I thought maybe he was gonna retire at the end of the year after a lackluster year, but no, he stepped up in a big way, and it surprised me a lot.
True. And we are recording this on February 26th, so Danny Amendola just said resign. I think it was the day before yesterday. So definitely, I personally at least am pleased about that. But yeah, I do feel like the whole, even just taking a look at 11 personnel across the league, with the exception of the Vikings being an absolute extreme outlier for whatever reason, and the Cardinals a little bit less because of their 10 personnel. For the most part, you see these teams 50 to 60% in that type of range. In that type of range. So I guess for me, I wasn't really as surprised as I think a lot of other people, like you had mentioned, Daniel, going into the season, for expecting a lot more 12 personnel. And even if you just take a look at our 12 personnel snaps here, we're not in the same mold as say, Houston or Minnesota, or especially Philly with Ertz and Goddard. But we still had a 20%-ish snap total and 12 personnel, which, I mean, as you see here, most of these teams are around 15 to 20. So I do feel like that we kind of ended up around expectations in total in that particular area. But it definitely is really interesting to see the potential progress we could be making going forward in that potential area, especially when you factor in our 40 snaps and 22 personnel that we had. 40 snaps is quite a lot, to be honest with you. And even just like 20 personnel, we had 11 snaps. Like, really? So that's definitely something to be looking forward to, and even more so with the Hawk injury too, which we forgot to bring up. TJ Hawkinson got hurt, I think it was twice last year, and missed I think 3 or 4 games. So potentially getting him more snaps and him more involvement in this offense could yield higher tight end usage next year as well. Anything you guys wanted to add to that?
Can I just say that Logan Thomas is actually a really nice signing for
True.
the minimum. I really liked what he brought to the team. I mean, like, he's not going to be like some superstar tight end or even a starter level tight end, but I really liked him when he was on the field. He made some athletic plays, caught the ball, and just generally seemed to add a little bit of spark to some of our tight end looks, which I really enjoyed. So props to Bob Quinn for that find there.
And I think that was also going into this a little bit deeper too. Props to Daryl Bevel for finding ways to utilize him and his athletic ability and get him into space, specifically by utilizing the play action pass. I think it was one of the bigger game plans we utilized with him. So cool. Any other thoughts that you guys want to go over on the tight end usage?
I just want to say, Hawkinson was not my guy in terms of who I wanted to pick. As you all know, my personal pick on the board at that time was Ed Oliver. Yep. I still stand by that, but I do think that Hawkinson does have the potential to be really good in this league for a long time. And if he can just tighten up a few things, maybe some of those contested balls that he's dropping right now might be catches next year in big time third down situations. So overall, I think that Hawkinson is right now in line with what we've seen from other rookie tight ends who have gone on to be great tight ends in this league or very good tight ends in this league. And overall, I'm satisfied with the pick.
I agree. I think he has potential to, I think he had the highest ceiling out of all the tight ends, including Noah Fant last year. So I think he could get to the level of Gronkowski a few years ago or George Kittle this year. I don't know if he will be necessarily that level, but he's still going to be like a top 10 tight end in a few years, I think.
Okay, wait, 1 sec. We have breaking news right here. Chris Dunn, a mutual in the chat.
Oh my god.
That's amazing.
That is literally awesome. Unfortunately, you know what? I'm gonna pull this up for you guys. I have my messenger open, and I'm actually going to show you guys what we're talking about, so you guys can see this. 1 second.
That's amazing. Okay.
Just so you guys know where my priorities are this offseason.
This is what we're talking about right now.
I love
that. This is
that.
Daniel, by the way, for those of you guys who don't know, and this is Chase Young.
It's amazing. It's so beautiful.
That is so freaking funny.
So, for those of you who aren't in the know about what this is all about, in our group chat, I have been relentless in defending Chase Young's honor on the group chat as a person that we should pick at 3.
Go Buckeyes.
Instead of Okuda or trading down. And so Chris Dunn was kind enough to make this picture for me about how much I love Chase Young and how much I think he should be a Lion. So, for the record, Chase Young, Detroit Lion, 2021, gonna be lit, guys. Gonna be lit. Also, I'm saving this to my tablet, and yeah, it's gonna be a treasured memory for me now. Thank you, Chris Dunn.
Cool. So, perfect transition. Well, kind of not really perfect transition, but it is kind of transition time, as well as we just finished wrapping up the tight end uh, narrative. So, moving on into going back to the offensive side of the ball, we'll get more into the pass rushing and draft stuff in a minute. But first off, we're going to go over sticking to the pass catcher theme here. The wide receivers that we had last year. We already talked a little bit about Danny Amendola as well. But Kenny Galladay and Marvin Jones both stepped up when they were on the field last year as well. Kenny Galladay got injured as a rookie, so we didn't really get to see him in full force. And Marvin Jones finished the year on IR both last year and the year before, but still had fairly strong years from the two of them, even with and without Matthew Stafford. So, what do you guys think about the receiver room going into 2020, even entering free agency with just those three guys and Marvin Hall? I don't know who wants to start between the two of you.
I'll start.
Cool.
I'm pleased with our top three guys, Galladay, Jones, and Amendola. I'd like to get some depth at wide receiver 4, wide receiver 5, whether that be free agency, whether that be draft. I know you and I are both big fans of Pittman. I would not mind him at all in like the third round.
Yep.
He's a guy that I could see being our wide receiver 4 come the preseason.
Nice. Daniel?
Personally, I like Marvin Jones and I like Kenny Galladay. I was not on the trade Marvin Jones bandwagon that got started last offseason,
Yep, that was a good
and
call on your end.
I am going to take a victory lap for that now. But in terms of some different, overall, I like Marvin Jones and I like Danny Amendola and I like Kenny Galladay in the roles that they're at. But I do think that we could use another look, so to speak. And what do I mean by that? I mean that Marvin Jones and Kenny Galladay are kind of similar players. They kind of do a lot of the same things. Make contested catches over in the middle, run solid routes, but not really gain a ton of separation, but have hands like vices. And so overall, I would really like to add a speed element, if possible, to our offense. And while I understand that Marvin Hall, every time he caught the ball, went for like 40 plus yards, I would still like to see some competition for him in that role by drafting like a mid-round McCall Hardman type, if at all possible. But yeah, no, I like this group. It's good.
Very nice. So yeah, definitely a lot of reason to be optimistic going into 2020. 2021, you have a little bit more reshuffling to do with Marvin Jones and Kenny Galladay both expected to be free agents. Kenny Galladay, of course, talking extensions, so we'll see what happens with that over the coming weeks, especially if a new CBA gets signed. But for now, just taking a look at 2020, definitely like both of those guys, as both of you guys have said, in the roles that they are playing last year, transitioning into the 2020 offense. So, wrapping the offensive skill guys up, I guess I should say, is the running back position. And this is a really interesting position to talk about when it comes to the Lions because, as most of the people watching this have probably known, Kerryon Johnson, again, for the seventh time in 7 years, or was it sixth time in 6 years? I don't remember. Once again, got injured and missed a good portion of the season. And beyond him, we only really have a sixth round rookie, and a second year undrafted free agent. So, what are your guys' thoughts on the running back room? Of course, J.D. McKissick is a free agent as well, so the third down running back position needs to be addressed. But in terms of just pure running backs, ball carrying running backs, where do you guys stand on that position? And what do you guys think about the long-term future, even 2020 long-term, of Kerryon Johnson? Do you trust him to be our starter day one next year?
Who wants to go first on this one?
I'll go, I guess.
Okay.
I trust Kerryon to be the starter, but I don't know if I trust him to stay healthy all 16 or apparently 17 games this season.
16, because they can't institute it until 2022.
Okay, then. But still, I don't know if I trust him to start. So if we can get someone that we can trust to give some snaps, because I don't know if he'll be healthy for all those games. Like, I don't trust him to stay healthy. So did Najee Harris declare?
No.
Or did he? No. Because that was a guy I liked. And I think you liked too.
I did, yeah.
Yeah. And, I mean, I liked McKissick. He was making really cheap money. Like veterans minimum. And I liked him. So if we can get him back, that would be great as third down back. But strictly Kerryon speaking, I'd like to get, like, an insurance player for if he gets hurt.
Yeah, so overall, I guess you could say Kerryon Johnson's Lions career so far has been mixed. I had really high hopes for Kerryon Johnson coming into this season, and I feel a little bit burned by the fact that he didn't really perform even when he had the shot. But at the same time, looking at the free agent market for running backs, it's really, really sparse. And so we kind of got to roll with Kerryon for a little bit, at least as the starter. I mean, sure, we can add a mid-round committee back at some point. That's fine. But looking at the guys on the board right now for free agency, I don't see... Well, I guess Lamar Miller is pretty good. But outside of that, man, it gets sparse really quick. I think probably the best dude on the board is Lamar Miller. Although Peyton Barber and Damian Williams are pretty good.
Derrick Henry, of course, but he's going to be expensive.
Pardon?
Dion Lewis?
Derrick Henry, of course, but he's going to be pretty expensive.
Yeah, but overall, I'm out on paying running backs big money.
Right.
Derrick Henry was crazy this year, no doubt about it. But the question for me of whether running backs are able to sustain their window of excellence. How long is Henry going to continue to run like that?
Yep.
And not get hurt or not get dinged up or not get some type of athleticism sapping going on that significantly decreases his value.
Yep.
So for me, I'm out on Derrick Henry. For me, so yeah, I'm fine going into next season with Kerryon Johnson as our main back, but for sure we need to add pieces, and for sure we need to get someone in there who can take snaps. Overall, I like Peyton Barber for this role. He's done really well in Tampa Bay and held his own against stiff competition from Ronald Jones II, who came on strong this year. And overall, I kind of like what he brings. He's a good, solid, reliable power back. So that's the best option.
Yeah, I think for me, I'm kind of looking more at the younger guys that are going to be in the draft, and maybe not even necessarily like a mid-round guy, because I'm still not sure whether I want Bo Scarborough to be our number two or not. I'm not sure how comfortable I am at that point in the process. And then you have Ty Johnson, who we took last year too. So I feel like we kind of have that speed power complement with those two guys. I'm just not sure whether I want to find someone who can do both, find the upgrade to Bo, find the upgrade to Ty, find. I'm kind of mixed on what kind of role I'd like for a fourth or a fifth, especially if we bring back a receiving back role to be this year. So yeah, I think it's a very interesting position to see what ends up happening. And while we're probably going to bring in some sort of competition, I don't know how much change I expect from the group of 3 or 4 guys with Kerryon, Ty, Bo, and a receiving back. Now, I do think that there's a chance that our receiving back has a little bit more impacting actual handoffs than Theo and JD did. I think that there's a little bit more upside there if we can find a guy who's had receiving ability upside in college. I'm not really sure who that could be yet. I'm not too far in my running back scouting yet, but if there's an option like that open, definitely some potential for that room to kind of grow and expand a little bit more beyond just splitting out wide or getting into the slot.
A guy like Isaiah Crowell could be good, pretty cheap. He's just coming off a torn Achilles with the Raiders, and if he's looking for like a 1-year prove-it deal at something cheap, he could be a good number 2 to complement Kerryon.
Torn Achilles, man, that's tough.
Yep.
And there's a little bit of rough character issues. There are enough guys on the board that I'd rather not just go in a different direction personally. But I'd be fine with giving Corell a shot, but it wouldn't be on my personal wish list for sure.
Cool. So,
Fair, wouldn't.
okay,
Sorry.
you go.
I was just gonna say it wasn't on. I wouldn't necessarily put him on my wish list. I was just looking through the board and throwing names out there that could be pretty cheap as a running back too.
Nice.
Fair enough.
So we have one more spot to talk about on the. Well, actually, I guess 2 more spots to talk about on the offense. First is we'll just go offensive line in general here. Last year, honestly, offensive line personally for me kind of outperformed expectations a little bit. I don't know how you guys feel about that, but Graham Glasgow when he was on the field had a pretty solid year last year. Taylor Decker, aside from getting absolutely dominated by Chandler Jones week 1 when he was injured, had a very good year. Rick Wagner, a little bit of a down year, but in all honesty, I think he was still starting caliber at the right tackle spot. Frank Ragnow reemerged. At one point, he was the top center in the entire league last year. And even the left guard position, Joe Dahl kind of proved that he wasn't going to be a disaster, terrible, cuttable type piece and earned an extension. So obviously, Grim Glasgow is a free agent, but do you guys have any thoughts on the offensive line's performance last year and how that group is going to look this year under Hank Fraley with Jeff Davidson's retirement?
Yeah, for me, the offensive line is really a tale of two sides of the offense. On pass protection, I have no issue with the offensive line. They did really well pass protecting for me. But in terms of run blocking, man, I know, Chris, we've had our differences over whether or not it was running back play or run blocking that was the problem. Pardon?
It was definitely both last year.
But yeah, if at all possible, like I would like to take this opportunity to potentially replace Graham Glasgow with someone with a little bit more meat to him. Like even if it's like even if it's like a mid-round pick,
Yep.
or something like that, or some dude that we just someone with a little bit more heft to him and ability to drive on defensive tackles. I'm not expecting him to be great in pass protection, but the rest of our offensive line is pretty good at pass protection. So maybe you can work with that a little bit. So that's my personal view on offensive line. I'm not thrilled with their performance, especially given relative to investment, but
Sure.
by far one of the better units we have on our team, and so I'm not gonna bash it too much.
Fair.
Keelan?
I agree mainly with what Daniel said. I think the run blocking could use some work. I don't know about if there's anyone in the mid to late rounds that would be necessarily better than Glasgow, but it would probably be better than paying Glasgow if you understand what I mean.
Asset management.
Yeah. So if we can get a guy like a guy like Tyler Biadasz was, or if that's how you pronounce it. Sure. I never figured out how to pronounce his name.
I'm pretty sure it's Biadasz.
Okay. But he's someone that was really, really good in his redshirt sophomore season. He kind of fell down a cliff this year, but I still think he could be good. He's a guy that is probably gonna fall into the later-ish rounds, so he could be someone interesting. I'm not entirely sure what position he'd play best at.
Well, he probably ended up playing right guard or left guard here, considering Frank is at this point locked in as center. So
here's the dude. One last point on the offensive line. Here's a dude I would like to see the Lions make an offer for. Is Mike Iupati. He played in Seattle last year for roughly the vet minimum, and I know he's 33 years old, but he used to have a pretty formidable reputation as a run blocker, even if he was never that good of a pass protector. I'd like to see the Lions look into that a little bit, just as a name to throw out there.
If he can stay healthy, that's a good option. But we know he's been struggling with injury issues over a lot of his career. So, but if he can stay healthy, that would be a good option to take a look at.
I remember when he played in San Fran. Goodness, that must have been 5 years ago now? That was in the Kaepernick days?
Yeah, that was a while
ago. I know
ago.
he was in Arizona for a bit, so.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, okay. So, we have one other position on the offensive side of the ball that we've already talked a little bit about, and I think is pretty locked in, but we're going to talk about it a little bit anyways, and that is the quarterback spot. Obviously, we all know Matthew Stafford is our starting quarterback heading into the 2020 season, but the backup position behind
Not if the national media has anything to say about
it. They don't, which is good. However, what we don't know is who the backup quarterback is going to be next year. It could be David Blau, who looked okay at times last year. It could be Jeff Driscoll, who looked okay at times when he was healthy last year. It could be a veteran free agent, or it could potentially be a draft investment. So, what are your guys' thoughts on a myriad of situations, whether that be, do you take Tua at 3 as a backup? Do you take a guy in the later mid rounds, like in that 4th, 5th round range, to be a potential backup? Or do you want to go with a veteran type of backup, like you're not necessarily, but in the mold of Ryan Fitzpatrick, Josh McCown type?
I'm not a huge. Oh, sorry. You go ahead, Daniel.
No, you go. I went last time.
All right.
You go.
I'm not a huge fan of wasting a later round pick on a backup quarterback or a career backup, unless it's a massive hole. Because for me, I'd rather grab someone who has the potential to take over a starting spot, or someone who can fill a hole that we have. Someone like I don't even know, I don't even know who the later round quarterbacks are, but someone like that's not going to take over the starting job over Stafford or even be his replacement in a few years. So for me, I think I go veteran free agent. I go even UDFA, like we did with Blau, or we just stick with him. I think we can take a look at the free agency market, and if there's someone cheap that we think could be better than Blau, I think we go for him. But if not, I think we should just stick with Blau as our backup.
Yeah. I mean, like, you know what the dream scenario would be? The dream scenario is that Marcus Mariota's market just completely dries up and we grab him on the cheap. That would be a dream scenario. I don't know how realistic that is. But in terms of guys I would be looking at for the quarterback position, obviously I'm not looking at a starter. I think that the idea of drafting Tua is ridiculous.
I agree.
Just flat out ridiculous. But I like Marcus Mariota, as we said. I like Chase Daniel. And I also like Kyle Allen, who started for the Panthers a lot this year and is a free agent that maybe Panthers want to go in a different direction.
Yep.
Maybe Panthers want to bring in a young quarterback and then have him sit behind Cam and whatnot.
Yep.
So we don't know how that'll play out. But I think Kyle Allen would be a dude that I would look at seriously as someone who could, just come in for like a couple games and gimmick out some wins under Daryl Bevel with some play action and through read option and whatnot. So
I like Allen as an option. That's someone I didn't even think about. I like that a lot.
Yeah, he's still young enough too, and he has a little bit more of the upside also. So you're not necessarily getting a 39-year-old guy either. Really interesting. So here we go. When this reloads, here is our current depth chart. This also includes the defense, but for now, just looking at the top half of this from offensive line up. Is there anything that really stands out to you guys as a key area that you want to see addressed going forward, just in general, beyond what we already talked about this offseason?
for
me, like the
me,
depth chart visual.
just really niche kind of need that I feel we have is I think I'm impressed with Nick Bowden as fullback this year.
Okay.
And so if we could get another dude in there, like a UDFA or someone that could push Bowden and make him compete for the spot, I would not be against that at all. Just a little note there.
Interesting. Keilan?
Just looking, I guess. I'd like. Well, we went over receiver a bit, and we talked about draft. But if we could bring in, there's always a few receivers that are talked about highly that end up like going undrafted. So if we can bring in a couple of those like decent UDFAs to like sort of compete in camp and try to win over a spot and just get some more receiver depth, that would be ideal, I think. And even if they don't make the team, they're practice squad guys. They can come in, and I think that would be ideal.
True. And this team does have a pretty interesting history in terms of finding those weird kind of unknown receivers late. We saw a little bit last year with the camp hype for Teo Redding. At one point, there was a little bit of hype for Chris Durham. I think he actually was one of our starting receivers at one point. So a little bit of an interesting history from this regime, and a part of that goes back to just how many of these guys that we have in our front office right now have ties to that wide receiver position. I forget exactly how many it is, but I'm pretty sure. I think it was over 50% of our front office either played or coached or started out as an evaluator of the wide receiver position. So really interesting to see us find those kind of sneaky sleeper wide receiver type guys. And I definitely expect that to translate going forward into this off season as well. So yeah, I think the most interesting things, in my opinion, to watch this offseason from the offensive side are going to be what we do with that right guard position, whether that's finding a replacement for Grim Glasgow, whether that's trying Tyrell Crosby at guard maybe finally, or maybe Wilbur Shaw or Josh Garnett, who we signed this year a couple weeks ago, finding that starting right guard, as well as the third down back spot. I feel like he's probably going to end up being J.D. McKissick once all the CBA stuff gets sorted out. But finding that guy who can be that pass catching back, coming and pass protect as well, and that pass protection in the backfield and in the chip rolls should be a very interesting place to watch the potential changes in the roster construction there. So, with that being said, unfortunately, I don't have the personnel lineups for defense. So we will head over to that side of the ball and start with the defensive tackle spot. As you guys can see here, post Damon Harrison cut, that is a very, very, very big weakness for us right now. We normally have, including the versatile defensive linemen, 5 defensive tackles. Right now we have 2 of them on the roster, and both of them are former undrafted free agents. So out of all the positions in the entire roster, I would think that would be our biggest roster overhaul looking into this offseason. Do you guys agree with that?
Yeah, I think that overall we need at least like 3 mid-tier
Or
to
better.
high-tier additions along the offense, the defensive line. There's just no way around it. We can't go into the season relying on Atkins as strong as anything more than deep depth positions. So yeah, I mean, like right now, Deshaun Hand is the only guy I would trust along that defensive line, and that's really scary.
Interior, because obviously Flowers.
Yeah, sorry. Interior defensive line, although I consider edge should be kind of a different thing than defensive line, but whatever.
Right.
So overall, it's just a matter of finding the value. There's some guys here that I like in the free agent class, but no one super special that I can see off the top of my head right
DJ
now.
Rieger is one name that's come up quite a bit because he's played in that Romeo Crennel defense. DJ Rieger.
Yeah, DJ Rieger is a good shout out. A dude I would be looking at seriously is Danny Shelton.
Yep.
I think he fits really well what we're looking at here. Obviously, he's got that Patriot pixie dust, so Matt Patricia's all over that. Andrew Billings is
Yep.
another dude that we look at. Malik Collins is another dude I would look at.
Okay.
Michael Backers is like a high-end type acquisition that we could look at, but I'm not sure that he'll probably be way overpaid.
Same thing with Chris Jones, of course, too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think Rita's going to make a lot of money, too.
I would honestly be super happy if we somehow found any type of way to make Chris Jones a Detroit Lion, but I agree it's not likely. Michael Bennett is one more dude that I would take a look at. I know that he's kind of flamed out in a couple of places, especially in New England. But I still think he's got something left in the tank. And if he can provide any sort of penetration from the defensive line spot, I think that would be really helpful alongside just Shanahan. So that'd be something I'd look at too.
Do we take a risk with knowing what happened off the field? I mean, didn't he attack an old lady or something like that?
Yeah, it's clearly a character issue, but it's someone I would still take a look at. I think any good football team has to look at all of the options on the table, not just acquire boys, so to speak. But I know that Bob Quinn places a really high premium on character dudes, and so maybe he ixnays the look into Bennett. So we'll see. I don't know. But yeah, no, there's some dudes.
Yeah, another one too that you didn't mention is Siobhan Hargrave from Pittsburgh. Another potential option there as well. So, Keilan, what are your thoughts on our defensive tackle position?
I mean, Daniel basically named every free agent on the open. No, I'm kidding, but
Any potential draft options, perhaps? Maybe. I mean, it kind of seems like Daniel's been taking a lot of the free agent stuff, and Keilan's been taking a lot of the draft stuff. So maybe we can keep that thing going.
Yeah, I like Derek Brown. I mean, if we trade down.
Who doesn't like Derek Brown, man?
Right.
I know that Chris Robbins is the number one Derek Brown fan on the planet. So
if he's number one, I'm number two. I did some reorganizing, and he's number two on my board. So I mean, I know Chris has him at one, but later guys, I think we went over him a couple days ago. Chris, Elliott, I think it was Jordan Elliott.
Yep.
Yeah, from Missouri. He's a guy that I really liked on tape, and I think he could fit in later rounds, round 3, round 4. I'm just trying to think of some names. I'm just blanking on some of the names here.
Okay, I'll get one. Leaky Fotu from Utah is an interesting option for that nose tackle role. Someone who's kind of stay out to me a little bit. Obviously, if we move down a little bit further than the Derek Brown range, Javon Kinlaw is a potential option there. And there was Nemo Gallimore as well as another potential option. Not really a two-gap type of guy, which is a little bit of a concern for me. But he did two-gap a little bit in his earlier days at Oklahoma, so he has some experience there. Just a little bit more of a fit for a one-gap scheme.
Mm-hmm. Kinlaw's a guy that, if we trade down with Miami and get 5 and 18, he's a guy if he falls to 18, I'm running to the podium and grabbing him if we take Okuda 5.
Yep. And Rashard Lawrence as well as the other guy. LSU too. So, any other thoughts on the interior defensive alignment going forward?
We need all the help we can get there.
That's for sure.
That's just it.
Yeah, and honestly, I would not be surprised if we signed multiple free agents and or had multiple early draft picks on the interior D line. If we sign we normally have like that one big free agent signing every year, and then of course the first round pick. I would not be surprised if either or both of those were defensive tackle this year. Even going back to Quinn's earlier days, he signed Marvin Jones, he signed TJ Langerick Wagner, and then last year was Trey Flowers. It seems like every year we always have that one big splash guy, and then the rest is those role playing depth guys. I think that one big splash guy this year might not be like your 20 mil splash guy like Trey Flowers was, but like your DJ Rader, Javon Hargrave, all the guys that Daniel mentioned, definitely would be in that conversation for being your bigger name, higher impact signing for the upcoming season. So next, moving to the exterior defensive line, dash for us will also include the jack position in that. And the edge spots, including Trey Flowers in the edge spots, we have Trey Okwara, Romeo Okwara, Devon Kennard, and Austin Bryant in those projected roles for right now. What are your guys' thoughts on the edge group? Because personally, I'm a lot higher on Devon Kennard than I know at least Daniel is, and I know a lot of other people are really low on him too. So he's one of my personal kind of guys that I'm becoming more and more attached to as time goes on because I really like his run defense specifically, as well as his ability to drop in coverage. So curious what your guys' thoughts are on potential Kennard situation, and as well as specifically requiring Bryant, because I think we all agree Flowers is a clear impact starter next year.
Yeah, he's no doubt he's our guy. I think Okwara is definitely a guy that we need to look to upgrade, and if we can get someone who can play that role, and I feel like I know who Daniel's thinking of at that role, but I know but I don't know if he's gonna be. I don't know if Chase is gonna be there. So is that somewhere we go second round? A guy like Curtis Weaver, a guy like I don't know Josh Uche, or is that? I don't think this year's the time we move on from Kennard. I think he should be locked in as a starter in 2020.
Here's the thing. We were ranked dead last. Like, by a fair amount, dead last in pass rush productivity. And I know that we can blame the interior D-line.
Yep.
For sure, that plays a major role. But if Trey Flowers is supposed to be a good pass rusher, which let's assume for now, that Trey Flowers is supposed to be a good pass rusher, then I don't see how we could be literally dead last unless Kennard was somewhat disappointing as well in that role as well. If we look at his PFF numbers last time I checked, I think that he has a mid-50s grade on pass rush. So for me, that's not good enough for a guy that's pass rushing at least 50% of the time, probably more like 75-ish percent of the time, I want to say. And yeah, it's just not good enough for me. And so I would absolutely be going to upgrade Kennard, even if it meant changing the scheme so that the jack position is no longer a major emphasis in the defense. But I know that that's not a popular position. It's mostly a position that I hold for specifically Chase Young and not really for a standard mid first round pass rusher like Epinesa or someone like that. But I would not be against it for someone of Chase's caliber, so to speak.
So yeah, I have Kennard's
Yeah.
numbers up here on my other device here, and Devon Kennard had 438 total passing snaps, and 140 of those were in coverage. I'm not really too good at math, but I think that ends up around 300 pass rushing snaps out of 935. So he pass rushed about 1/3 of the time, and his pass rush grade was a 58.1. Run defense last year was a 71, and coverage was a 68.7. So just a little bit of added clarification on those.
Yeah, which I mean, it basically is my whole point. I'm fine with Kennard. He's an interesting role player. I think on a team with more guys around him who could actually rush the passer, he would look better and be better. But at the same time, I can't look at that 58.8 pass rushing grade and say that that's good enough to be the primary edge rusher alongside Trey Flowers next year for our defense. I'm fine with going into next season with him as the starter if we majorly upgrade the interior D line.
Yep.
Like in a major way.
Yep.
In a way that potentially looks a lot better than even just the line of Snacks and Robinson performed this year.
Yeah, Isham was the
yeah.
lowest pass rush win rate grade amongst all interior defensive linemen. It was almost 0.0%. He was not good. And I'll actually see if I can pull up his pass rushing numbers, specifically last year. He had a 50.5 pass rush grade, which was lower than every single defensive lineman on the team except for Frank Herron. And that includes Kevin Strong, who is 10 points higher. That includes Mike Daniels, who is 16 points higher. And that includes John Atkins, who's a nose tackle, by the way, who finished almost 3 points higher than him. So, yeah, Ishon was not good at all as a pass rusher last year. And basically every analytic film, every single observation all of us have made, I think, significantly backs that observation up.
Yeah, Ashawn was never a good pass rusher, but last year he took a nosedive. Even well beyond even what he looked like the previous year or the previous 2 years even. I was really disappointed with Ashawn. I wouldn't really look into bringing him back if it was anything more than like a 3.5 mil type deal. So just is what it is, unfortunately.
Yep. Cool. So, Keelan, your turn. Any other thoughts on the Flowers through Bryant spots here? Anything we talked about?
Yeah, I'm not gonna. What was I? Sorry. I'm not gonna go and call Kennard by all means even a great rusher. I just think that there's other positions we should prioritize, and it's gonna be difficult to replace Kennard if we're trying to replace most of our
whole
interior defensive line. Basically, plus we'll talk about this more. Plus, revamping some of, if not a lot of our corners.
Secondary.
So it's gonna secondaries, basically, yeah. So it's gonna be difficult, and shouldn't be a priority for Bob Quinn to improve or replace Kennard when he's a serviceable starter, when we clearly have gaping holes elsewhere.
All right. We'll agree to disagree on that one, but I'll throw you a bone for that one.
So, with that being said, Keilan and Austin Bryant do kind of play a linebacker-esque position, but we also have regular linebackers as well, and Jelani Tavai, Jared Davis, Christian Jones, Jalen Reed-Maybin, and a couple of the other special teams guys as well. Most of the time we have 2-3 special teams guys, so JRM Pittman coming down Longa not really going to be factors in the actual linebacker pushing of the defense. But these first guys most likely will be to various degrees next season. Christian Jones just signed a pretty hefty extension, especially given how poor his play was last year. And Jerry Davis, we have locked in for at least one more year, possibly two if we take his fifth-year option. And Jelani Tavai, of course, the second-round rookie, who showed a little bit of promise last year. So I personally don't expect a lot of investment in the linebacker group this year, other than maybe upgrading the special teams back end. But what are you guys' thoughts on this linebacking crew and ways that we can maybe utilize them better going forward to put them in better situations?
Yeah, I think that I wouldn't be looking at linebacker seriously. Obviously, Jared Davis was not good enough at all last year, but there's enough pedigree there that I'm willing to kind of roll with it for just one more year. It sucks, but I think that there's lots of other positions that need resources too, and so you got to kind of hope that Davis takes a leap, but that also Tavai takes a little bit of a leap too. He was fine, Tavai. I had no major issues with him, but it wasn't like impact starter, I don't think. But obviously you shouldn't expect from a second round pick, but still, I would expect them to be better this year, and I think that that's kind of what you have to hang your hopes on if you want to improve the inside linebacker spot for me. So.
And before Keilan gets started, I'm going to add a little bit of context to this. Jelani Tavai was our worst pass rusher last year out of all the linebackers. He only had a 51.4 pass rush grade and 87 pass rushing snaps. So that was probably by far his biggest weakness. Meanwhile, Christian Jones had a 46.5 run defense grade. A little bit better than Kilbrew and Longa, but again, special teams guys there. And then Jared Davis was by far our worst coverage guy. He was a 32.6 coverage grade last year and 336 coverage snaps. So that kind of gives you guys an idea. And Christian Jones had 257 run defense snaps. So kind of giving you guys a little bit of an idea there on the performance level of that unit.
Yeah, it's not a good position, but at the same time, it's not a good position for free agency. But my daughter was not a good position for that, so we just kind of gotta roll with what we got and see if any of our young guys can step up a little bit in their fourth year for their second year for July. Like we can look at guys, I guess. Reggie Ragland and Wesley Woods are some dudes. But yeah, outside of that, it's looking pretty bad. By the way, just an FYI, is listed as an inside linebacker on spot track. But if we landed us lucky with a Canard upgrade, we could look at someone like Kyle Van Noy if he's not too upset at the way that his time in Detroit went. But yeah, overall, just not a position we can really upgrade at this point, but then seeing some type of pathway to that. So,
Yeah, I agree. We spent 2 high picks on in the first on Davis. I think it was the second on July. So I don't think there's really anyone we can really replace them with. I think we just gotta stick with them and hopefully show improvement. It's still pretty young. And a lot of mocks have us going at Simmons, but I just really don't think that's the case at all. And I think you guys will agree with me.
all right. Do we want to move on to corners?
Sure.
Chris? Chris?
Chris disappeared.
Oh, well, that's fine.
Great.
I'm going to get a glass of water, so give me 1 sec.
I guess I'll start on corners since I don't know what happened to Chris and Daniel's getting water. We got Slay. We got Coleman in the slot. We got Amanio, which had a good rookie year. And we have a whole lot corner too, so